I want you to tell me what you think about this trick. So a card is selected. I do not know what it is. Card goes somewhere into the middle of the deck. Now, we'll just use a random card, sort of as a placeholder card. So in this case, it's going to be the Queen of Clubs. So I would have you hold out your hand and I'd place the Queen of Clubs inside your hand. Now, I would ask you one more time, what is the card in your hand? You would say the Queen of Clubs. You mean the Queen of Clubs? You would then reveal the card in your hand as your original selected Six of Diamonds. So I want you to pause this video right now, go in the comments, and let me know what you thought of that effect. If you like it, if you didn't like it, if you think it's no good, if you think it's easy, not gonna fool anyone, how you think spectators would enjoy it, how you enjoyed it, let me know all of that right now in the comments below, and then come back to the video. Hit pause. Welcome back. Now that you're back, let's take a look at what an actual spectator, a true layman in real world performance, thought of this very simple, very easy effect that I would go out and say that a lot of you probably didn't like that much. Take one out.
One more time.
Whoa.
Put that on top.
Hey. Don't.
I won't look. Okay, watch. I take the card, all right? Take it.
Even the way he flips it on.
Yeah, and it goes in the middle like that. No.
Okay.
No, I'm not holding anything. Like that, all right? All right, we're gonna take the next card here. Nine of spades.
Yeah.
Hold out your hand. Put your other hand on top. Okay.
Bro, this guy's crazy.
So, do you remember what your card was?
Yeah.
It wasn't the nine of spades. So it wasn't the nine of spades.
Oh. Bro. How?
It wasn't the nine of spades.
No.
What was it?
But you get
What was it?
6 something. Yeah! No, I'm not. No. You're good, bro. You're good.
What is good, guys? It is Reed, and welcome back to another video. Today is Dear Magicians, episode 4, Stop Thinking Like a Magician. In this video, I'm going to be talking to you about magician's brain. What do I mean by it? What is it? Why is it a bad thing? Why is it a good thing? How to use it to your advantage in performance and all these things. At the end of the day, these videos are kind of rant-ish style. You know, I'm not gonna rant, not gonna swear a bunch like Craig does over at Magic TV, but it's more to share my thoughts on important topics with magicians and create a bit of a discourse. We've talked about YouTube exposure in the past. We've talked about hecklers, all kinds of very important topics, and if you haven't seen those videos, highly recommend you go check it out. Hope you liked the intro. It hopefully illustrated a very interesting point that we will be talking about in this video. And with all that said, guys, if you like this video, don't forget to like, please subscribe to the channel, helps me out a lot. And if you'd like to check out some private lessons, you can check them out in the link below. But anyway, let's jump right into Dear Magicians, episode 4, Stop Thinking Like a Magician. Dear Magicians, stop thinking like a magician. Now, this might sound contradictory. We're magicians. Why should we stop thinking like magicians? Is that not how we create magic and methods? Let me explain to you what exactly I mean. So, thinking like a magician, in the context that I am talking about it in, is always thinking about the method first. Always thinking about how the effect is going to be achieved. Looking for the best, most devious, impossible methods all the time. Not being realistic about what spectators really think about routines. Not thinking about things, especially from an effect point of view, which I would argue is the most important, from the perspective of someone who would be watching this, aka someone who doesn't know much about magic. Feeling like you need to be fooled for magic to be good. That is a big one, and I'm gonna let that sink in. Feeling like you need to be fooled for magic to be good. This is the epitome of the magician brain and one of the biggest problems with it. As magicians, our job is to entertain our spectators. It is not to fool them. It is not to, do anything else but entertain. Now, some will argue that it can't be magic without fooling. I would probably tend to be kind of in agreement, but there is some caveats to that. You have to understand that when I say the magic has to fool them, it has to fool them. Doesn't have to fool me, doesn't have to fool you, doesn't have to fool other magicians, has to fool them. And 99% of the methods, no matter how simple or easy or obvious they are, boring or lame they are to us, will fool laymen. The problem with the magician's brain is we will often look at these effects from our perspective, how we enjoy them, how we would interpret them, and that is what is basing our decisions on what effects we should perform, how we should perform them, and that is a problem. We need to be honest with ourselves about how the people we want to perform for are going to interpret our effects. Now, if you're anything like me, you wouldn't like performing much to magicians. It's not really your goal. And I think for the most part, that is true for most. I will say it can depend on your intentions. What stage of an effect you're at. You know, when you're thinking about method, it can be good in certain cases to think like a magician, bearing in mind the effect and how you interpret that as well, right? Most of the time though, especially in the effect point of view, it is important to be able to put yourself in the shoes of the spectators watching. Here are some of the problems with the magician brain. If you think too much with the magician brain, you will hinder the magic you do and ruin the strengths of the effects that you do. You will be missing out on so many fantastic effects because maybe you think the method's not good, it's not going to fool anyone. Whatever the case is, you think these things because you are looking at them from your perspective, a magician's perspective. Some of these simplest things, like the super simple double lift that I demonstrated in the intro. Super easy. I didn't add much presentation, but I did make it feel like a little bit more than just a double lift. And you can see the crazy reactions to that super simple effect that I just did on a whim because I felt like it would work. That double lift switch is so underestimated by a lot. Not everyone. Some people understand the value, but many people will overlook simple sleights like a double lift. Here on YouTube, I've taught lots of tricks. Some are simple, some have more devious methods, and it always seems like the ones with those super devious methods that no one has thought of before are the ones that people like and do well. And the problem with those is a lot of times they're not very practical for the real world. That's the type of trick you could sit down and show another magician when it's not super high stakes and you're trying to fool them, and okay, there's a time and a place for that. But is that going to be an effect that's going to be a real worker for you? Probably not. The simple things, 2-card Monty that uses a top change and a double lift. A new effect I recently taught called transfer. That's a simple control, double lift, and a force. Those videos don't get the same amount of love because people are looking at the methods and thinking, oh, I've seen that before. Oh, everyone knows that method. What about the effect? Think about the effect from the perspective of someone who doesn't know anything about magic. Think about it, what's happening to them. Okay, and I'm going to give some examples later on as well, but let's think about that opening effect I showed in the intro. To a layman, in the most bare bones way, they are going to interpret that effect as they picked a card that is somewhere in the middle of the deck. A random card was placed into their hand. They saw it go directly into their hand, and somehow you were able to have that card jump back to the top of your deck when it should have been in their hand, and the card that they lost in the middle of the deck is now changed for the card that they thought was in their hand. It has changed. The card has changed. Incredible magic. How is that possible? Shouldn't be. Right? And if I think about that in my magician brain, it's not that exciting. But if you think about that from someone who's never seen magic, never done magic, that doesn't make any sense. It's incredible. It's so easy for us, so hard hitting. That is something you could work, you could actually do 10 times in a night. It does depend on your priorities. If you don't intend on ever performing, if you only want to fool magicians, you can go that route. But I think for the majority of us, what I'm saying is what we want and resonates. We want to perform. We want to show our friends, family, and maybe gigging situations. We want to show great, powerful magic that's practical. Ultimately, you're limiting your potential by keeping yourself inside this box because you're trying to just find things that are, oh, super incredible methods that entertain you. Now it's important to do magic that you like and that entertains you because then you'll have more of your heart in it. But don't dismiss these things just because you don't like the method or you think it's too obvious. Take those into serious consideration when you're considering what effects you want to do. I do think magician brain can create some serious negativity in the community. In my video when I talked about being nice to each other, one of the things I hit on was a lot of times magicians will see an effect or a performance and they'll leave a bad comment because I know how that was done, that was so easy, it's just a double lift, they'll expose it, whatever. And this is partially because in their brain, it doesn't seem like a very incredible effect. It's not a really cool effect, so might as well share how it's done. He can't be that good of a magician if all he did was a double lift. But look at the reaction that the person gave. That is truly one of the telltale signs of a real magician, if they're able to facilitate and get these great reactions, you know. A lot of my street magic videos, I go out there, time after time, I can generate great reaction after great reaction using simple effects that you've seen all kinds of magicians do over and over. But I'm able to, you know, bring out those true big, huge reactions from people. And that's part of the thing I strive for is working on how to create the best reactions from different effects. I think it also creates negativity because people are dismissive of good material and they'll not give it as much praise as sometimes it deserves. And at the end of the day, I think we should be all about praise and trying to give people their flowers and tell people when something's good in the community and then help people, right? So it can definitely lead to some negativity. At the end of the day, it also does your audience a disservice, you know, pulling back some of the great effects that you could be showing them, giving them the best experience that they could have. Maybe you're not doing it because you have the magician's brain and you're avoiding certain effects or not doing, you know, the killer stuff. So how do we overcome this problem? Okay, how do we overcome magician's brain? So here's a few things. My biggest tip is to remove yourself from your own shoes. Think about everything, and I've talked about this in a lot of videos, but think about everything from a third-party perspective. Imagine, okay, let's say you have an effect, you have a triumph. Imagine you are a fly on the wall watching yourself perform that triumph to another spectator. You as the fly on the wall are similar to the spectator. You don't know anything about magic, you're just watching. Think about how that effect would truly feel. Break it down into its simplest forms of what is the effect I'm trying to portray, you know? That's why, like, when I hate when an any card, any number uses a force, say, and people are like, well, that's not any card. It is to the layman. It's any card to the layman. If you do it right, it'll feel to them like any card, and that's what matters at the end of the day. As that fly on the wall, you would think it was any card. That was a great illustration of what I'm talking about. You can remove yourself, then you can see the effect for truly what it is. You can also see the performance for truly what it is and what you need to improve on and how you can improve that performance to get those best reactions. Don't be afraid either to test things out. If you're not sure if something would play well in the real world, it's something that everyone deals with. I come up with an effect, I think it's great. I've thought about it from the third person perspective. I think it'll work out well, but I just don't know how well it will play in the real world. Only way to find out is to test it. I test in the real world. You know, it's not like it'll go wrong. It maybe just won't have the same effect that I thought it would, and that's not a huge deal. Ask people what they thought about it after you perform it. You know, these are all things that are fine to do. At the end of the day, I urge you to try to find value in everything, even if you pull up a YouTube tutorial from some kid who has no idea what he's talking about, and you know, he's filming on a potato and he can barely, you know, string together a sentence. Try, you know, that might be a bit extreme, but try to find something of value to take away. And I think this is a, you know, better illustrated example when you look at like material on YouTube or maybe downloads that you buy or books. You're not going to like all of it. You know, not everything everyone puts out you're going to like. Not everything you're going to find useful. Maybe you already know it. You know, maybe you're not interested in learning it. But I guarantee if you put your mind to it, you can find something of value from every video. For example, I recently purchased from Vanishing Ink Danny D'Ortiz's, I love Danny, but he talked about his Fool Us performance for like 3 hours, and he goes over how he did it, psychology, all that stuff. Now, I wasn't interested in how he does it. I've purchased a lot of Danny's material. I know exactly how he did the Fool Us effect because it's a lot of his style, his methods put together, and I was familiar with everything he did. There wasn't anything that fooled me. I've seen it all. I know how he does it, and it was fantastic though. The effect was fantastic, amazing. He did a really good job. But even me watching that for the first time, my brain was like, no, how he did that, no, how he did that, no, he did that, no, he did that. It wasn't until I watched it the second time where I could truly appreciate everyone else's reaction, performance, and truly what the effects were to people. And I say this because I bought that more for the psychology part. But again, I'm familiar with a bunch of the psychology that Danny talks about. So really, I'm sitting there watching this 3-hour download, not really sure why I bought it, not learning anything in my mind. I know how it's all done, but there were so many things that I got of value from that video. So many just little like sentences he would say just tiny little pieces of psychology, subtleties, even method stuff, like tiny little changes in handlings to things that he does, maybe things he's updated, that were valuable. Even though 80% of the video I knew all about, I still got a lot of value from that, right? And that's me being able to set aside my ego and really appreciate and try to learn from everything. That's my goal. Every time a YouTuber puts out a video, a magic video that I like, I try to watch all of them by YouTubers that I like, because even if I know exactly what the effect is, how it's going to be done, you never know what you could learn of something truly valuable from any video. So let's talk about a few examples. One being the crosscut force. I think it's so overlooked, but honestly the best force out there. They did actually a study on this over at the Jerks, where they had like regular people rate how fooled or how free forces felt. Worst force, classic force. Best force, crosscut force. No surprise to me. A lot of people were surprised. I'm sure a lot of you have heard about this study. Crosscut force, so incredibly fooling because of how fair it is, right? It happens in their hands. How many forces happen in their hands? They cut wherever they want. If you can do it right, absolutely lethal weapon, but a lot of people avoid it because they think it won't fool anyone, it won't work, it's not that good, and they are so mistaken, and they are missing out on that, doing a disservice to their audience, and just losing out on that great tool in the toolbox. Like a force prediction effect, where you have a prediction of a card, whatever, you have a card written down, you hand them the prediction, and you just force a card onto them. Second deal force. Whatever, like Daniel Madison has an effect called controller. Super simple. You write down a prediction, the prediction is just the top card on the deck, they deal cards into your hand, stop whenever they want, and all you do is you take that top card, you just hit a bottom deal, right, as you take the top card off the deck. Now it feels like the card they stopped on, you predicted, because you have the prediction. It's such a simple, easy, nothing effect, but it absolutely hits. And simple like effects where you write a prediction, then you just force it on them, kills, because to them, it wasn't a force, right? So it's just incredible. And then the effect you saw at the intro here, you saw how strong that was. I'm telling you, try that effect exactly how I did it in the performance. Have them sign a card, control it to the top, do a double as a random placeholder card, set that card in their hand, ask them what card's in their hand, they'll say it, and you say, you mean this one? And you just turn the card that's supposed to be in their hand, you have it in your hand, they'll have this moment, ask them what the card they originally picked was, flip it, absolutely kills. Telling you guys, it's really, really great. Hopefully that intro illustrated my point. Hopefully you guys followed the instructions, left some comments before you watched it ahead. I'd be really curious to see what you guys think, see how bad or good your magician brains are. Hopefully it can illustrate my point, and you guys can get a sense of what I'm trying to talk about here. And hopefully if you left a comment, you can go reflect now on the comment you left, and I think that would be pretty cool and a good way to see where you stand. Did you say, oh, that was complete trash, why would you ever do that? You need to check your magician brain. Or were you kind of like, yeah, I for me it was easy, I know how it was done, but from a spectator I could see that being really good, then I think you're in a good place. So there are times to think like a magician, okay? Method does matter, it is important, right? And this can be a time where you can think like a magician, just keeping the effect in mind from the spectator's perspective, but thinking about methods, what's going to work well for you when you're performing, right? Am I going to be able to do this crazy angle sensitive thing when I'm performing? Like, that's questions that you should ask yourself as a magician. But at the end of the day, you got to find a balance between the two and try to find the optimal way to maneuver, right? Thinking about the effect from the spectator's perspective, the method from the magician's perspective, and then swap and think about it from each perspective, method from spectator's perspective as well. How will they interpret the method, and try to find a nice marriage of those, and that's how you can create some of the best magic. I would recommend going through every effect that you create if you are a creator and thinking about them from both perspectives all the way through. Think about it, creating it from the magician's perspective, create it from the audience perspective, see what you get, and find a marriage in the middle. Maybe for the magician's perspective, you use this super fooling but super complicated way to force a card. And then when you think of it from the spectator's perspective, you realize, okay, that's not going to be practical for me to do in the real world. If I just use a riffle force, it'll be just as fair to their perspective. Let's use the riffle force instead. So hopefully these examples illustrate my point. and you guys can understand what I mean by the magician's brain and why I think it's important to be able to look at things from other perspectives. So guys, I hope you enjoyed that video. This was a really great video, a lot of value in it. I'm really happy with how it turned out. And hopefully my example at the beginning can illustrate my point and we can have some cool sort of discussions on that. So if you have any thoughts on this or anything you'd like to say, please leave them in the comments down below. Love to hear from you guys. And if you'd like more videos like this, please like and subscribe to the channel. It goes a long way to helping me out. If you'd like to check out some private lessons, you can check those out at the link in the description. So with all that said, guys, don't forget to like, comment, share, subscribe, and I will catch you in the next video.